Members, we move now to the Veteran Support Bill. We haven't done any of this in committee, have we? The question is that part one stand part?
Mr. Chair.
I'll take the Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I trust you'll indulge me while the introduction to the committee stage of this bill sounds a bit more like a second reading speech, because I was unable to offer any intervention when the bill was read for the second time, and as a consequence I haven't spoken on this bill since I introduced it in October last year for its first reading. So I think it's appropriate to first acknowledge the very thoughtful speeches that were made by people who have a very strong empathy with this, and I specifically and strongly remember the speeches of my friend and colleague Melissa Lee, that of Andrew Williams, that of Meka Whaitiri, all who have very personal stories about why this bill is important to them, and I want to acknowledge their very thoughtful contributions. Can I also thank the submitters, especially those from the veteran community who have informed the bill and its subsequent changes, and also members of the Social Services Select Committee, ably chaired by Pesata Sam Lotuinga, now the Honourable Pesata Sam Lotuinga, who, thanks to his promotion, resulted in the bill being safely passaged through committee by Melissa Lee. Also to officials, particularly Sarah Luxford and the team at Veterans Affairs New Zealand, Major Rebecca Thornley, who both worked incredibly hard and still are on the regulations that will support this bill. Others also who contributed, Keith McClay, Robert Buchanan and Victoria Hinson, PCO and others. I also want to acknowledge another individual who has a very strong connection to this bill and to support for veterans, and that is Brigadier Rick Ottaway. Now, Rick retired from his role of probably 7 or so years as the General Manager of Veterans Affairs and Secretary for War Pensions, but that was only a small proportion of a long legacy of service to this country, militarily, over 50 years. And I think it's worth acknowledging in this House thanking Brigadier Ottaway for his long and loyal service. I'm pleased to say that while he has retired from that role, I don't lose all of his services. He will be continuing to support the efforts to plan for the commemoration for Anzac Day 2015. As we know, we are here because the War Pensions Act, which this bill replaces, is now 60 years old. It was written for a time and a situation in the post-Second World War period and has served very well, but it was recognised that it was necessary to replace it, and the Law Commission, after its deliberation, recommended 2 schemes and made 170 recommendations, of which 132 were accepted by the government, in what I think was a very generous package, a $60 million package, which resulted in material increases to disability and surviving spouse pensions last year. Now, most of the recommendations that were not taken up were administrative in nature, the setting up of a committee and some consequent amendments which the government felt were not necessary. But there were a couple of thorny issues, I think it's fair to say, that were debated and continue to be debated about whether or not they should have been agreed. I think the overall package, however, was very generous in the circumstances, particularly in the straitened times the Cabinet was considering them. And overall, I'm very satisfied with the way in which it's landed. But one particular issue that has been debated, and I know we will do so in the Committee of the Whole, is on the issue of lump sum on death. Now, the estimates, the best estimates of that suggest that the cost of removing the current disability threshold for the payment of lump sum on death would be in the region of at least $40 million over 4 years. It actually depends on what is included. If the bill is to be amended, it could be much higher than that. My parliamentary colleague, the opposition spokesman for veterans, Mr Goff, a very experienced member, generally when in the race to see which side of the House could be generous, will talk up the value of an initiative like this. Indeed, he has talked it down because he realises that in straitened times it's probably not appropriate. Nevertheless, while I agree that the diminishing number of veterans may make this affordable in the short term. The very reason we are replacing the War Pensions Act 1954 is that while our older soldiers will pass on in time, thanks to a number of recent theatres, including Bosnia, Gulf War I, Iraq, Afghanistan, East Timor, the Solomon Islands, while the numbers needing support may diminish in the short term, in the medium to long term there is no doubt that the 15,000 to 17,000 new and modern veterans who have served this country with distinction will, as they age, need to be well supported, including in their retirement. So we'll have that debate, and I think it'll be a robust debate, I have no doubt. I, for one, am not swayed to the view that we need to invest an extra $40 million at this time, but that will be a framework we will set up that I think we'll be able to debate and have that, Mr. Chair.
Honourable Michael Woodhouse.
Have that discussion in the future. But if I was to be swayed into the extra investment right now, I think I would be inclined to support our veterans while they are alive, rather than after they pass away. Now, their families have made sacrifices as well. I'm not trivialising the importance of providing some sort of support on lump sum on death, and that is certainly the case for those who, under the new language, will have an impairment of greater than 52% under the new AMA guideline nomenclature. But my very strong preference is actually to provide support to veterans while they are alive. However, in the reflections around this, and I did a great deal of thought about the recommendations that were being promoted by Mr. Goff and the RSA and other submitters. And I was swayed by the simple proposition that anybody who requires retirement support, having reached the age of retirement, who was a veteran, should be entitled to a veteran's pension and for their superannuation to be called such. And I was swayed to that view, and to the view that a couple of other entitlements could be attributed to all veterans, that is a non-means-tested community services card and the removal of abatement provisions on the veteran's pension if a veteran is required to spend an extended period of time in hospital. And so whether the government has introduced an SOP which makes some minor technical amendments, including the extension of the commencement date for Scheme 1 to 1st of October 2014 and Scheme 2, 1st of October 2015, in order to give people time to prepare for those changes. I think, and we will discuss this in Part 6 when it comes up, but I do want to put in my prefacing comments that I think it was an important recognition, that simple statement that when you are a veteran, having reached the age of retirement, you are entitled to a veteran's pension. Now, we'll debate that robustly, I have no doubt. But I hope we can debate this in a manner that is befitting of our veterans. We stand in this House with those silent sentinels of theatres past, Le Quenoir, Casino, which is very current at the moment, Messine, and our modern theatres of Timor-Leste, Afghanistan, and missions in support of peace. And I trust that when we do have those debates, we respect the dignity of the veterans who served in all of those theatres.
Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr. Chairman, can I